Hello there everyone, let's cover the faction of the Dunlendings, or Dunland as they are usually known. Very cheap units, safe starting location, dependable infantry, we'll talk about that right away. So let's check that out. I would consider that they have a very hard campaign. I will explain why. It requires your winning conquests requires you to go in two different locations. You have to assist Isengard getting rid of Rohan, and this basically means that if you let Isengard go against Rohan, Rohan may win, and you will have a very dangerous enemy on your back. Now you do have the United Clans stuff, just to conquer the clans of Enedwaith. So let's talk about this in general. Basically, you need to actually capture the Rohan's capital and the Breland's capital. So even if you rush Breland, there is no way that you can actually do this and destroy the faction before Isengard and Rohan's conflict is kind of settled, as in who will take the capital and who will win over that. So basically, I would go and assist Isengard against Rohan, but it's also a double-edged sword because you will expand over here and you will let Bree come in over to this side. So it's quite a dangerous decision that you have to do earlier on. Like, if you don't assist Rohan at all, it may cause Rohan to survive or even overtake Isengard, which is a really big problem. Now, since you have to do that, you only have to hold 30 regions, that's cool. But I would consider that this is a very long campaign. Of course, you have a very strong ally with the Dominion of Isengard, it's awesome. You're also enemies with the dwarves of Khazad-dûm, and do not ignore this because they're fairly close to your borders. You do have a river, but they are dwarves, so be careful about that. And you do have the dichotomy of the Enedwaith. You never know if they are going to be allies or if they're going to be enemies. So make sure that you settle that as early as possible, that you try to see. If you manage to capture a couple of settlements, I would say you can try an early war with Enedwaith just to capture their places and get rid of that. But I wouldn't expect you to finish that before turn 50, for instance, and by then Bree will become annoying because they have grown, and Rohan may have captured Isengard. Of course, if Rohan doesn't capture Isengard, and if Isengard actually does the capturing, then you will have to betray Isengard at a moment. So there's always interesting decisions to be made with Dunland, no matter the point in time that you're playing. So that's really cool. I really love that faction. Now you have one building for units. I'll showcase that, guys. So basically you have just the ancillary training grounds, which trains everything. This is just so awesome. It just means that you will be able to recruit units with one building, and suddenly everything changes, because it's not like you have to spend 10 or 15 turns to upgrade a single city to purchase units. You just get 3 turns and everyone is already available to produce. Now you have many forts, but there's also some rebel ambushes nearby, so be careful when even moving troops to the forts. I would say move a unit that you're not afraid to lose before, or check with some spies this area, because there will be some rebels nearby, and that will cause you a problem. So then again, you do have like 4 forts, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 4. Just make sure that you use them, because of course any upkeep will be really helpful. Any upkeep free will be very helpful. Now you do have some hard early picks and start. I mean, you can get peace with Rohan, by the way, by just sending making a diplomat and sending it to them. It may be required in case you just want to make sure that you have a solid border versus Bree, but even then, you're in the middle of things. You're in the middle of the open area, so you'll have those bad decisions to make. Right, so let's talk about the military units, just for a change. Okay, so basically, like we've seen, you only have the barracks, and that allows everything. So let's start by checking the basic units. So you have some Dunlanding Huntsmen, which is basically a javelin unit skilled against mounts. Now, these are cool. They have 3 missiles, 55 meters. It's decent upkeep, and missile attack is really cool. So that's a basic javelin unit that you will always use, I would say. Then you have the Dunlanding Berserkers, a very effective against armor unit with excellent stamina as well. So these are kind of more, I would say, upgraded X-Men, as in very low defense, very low upkeep. Overall, the roster of units is a very low upkeep. But these guys have a very high attack. I mean, anything above 7 for me, it immediately catches my eye. And 9 is amazing, including the effective against armor, which means that they will ignore a lot of the armor from the enemy. Now I have the Dunlanding Warband. This is your bread and butter unit. It's pretty much, 514, they skill against mounts, so this is a spearman unit that will hold their own against any other enemy units pretty well, and it doesn't cost you too much, so yeah, just get as many Dunlanding Warbands and then send the Berserkers in. Then you have the Dunlanding Warriors. Now, let me talk a little bit about this. I would strongly consider this, not using these guys, because there's a lot of much better units than them. Of course, attack 7 is still cool, very good upkeep, very decent defense, but I would say that I would prefer numbers of Dunlanding Warbands and Berserkers. Of course, if you have nothing else, just recruit these guys. We also have Done Here Champions. Now I really like this unit. It's skilled against mounts with a 7 and 10 stats, and the missile attack of 4 missiles of 9 attack with high accuracy and 65 range meters. I mean, you can station these guys right on the front. They will hang on the charge. They will cause a lot of damage. Or you can station behind the Dunlanding Warbands, or even on the flanks, because they can also hide in the woods really well. So this is really I would use these guys like you use skirmisher cavalry, like to just go around and hit the best unit that they have. Really awesome unit. Then you have the Clan Hunters, your basic archer unit, which is very weak. This is my take on these Clan Hunters. I wouldn't get them if I would have the Huntsmen or even the Champions, because I would prefer the Javelins than having to, having these guys to fire 5 shots to even get the same number of casualties. Of course, you will always need some sort of artillery, but perhaps trying to avoid that a little bit, because your enemies are also not really that powerful in archers, not even Bree or well, Bree does have some archer units, but they're still not the archer faced unit or army, I would say. I would mostly go with javelin units before using the archers. Now, you do have cheap units, low upkeep, you're noticing this, and it's also low quality units. But you kind of have one of each. I'm going to show you. So let's check the Beast Slayer. So you have the low quality archers, and then you have the high quality archers. You've already seen these guys on the Isengard faction overview. These are pretty much your basic archers. Now, these are the units that will do a really good job. They're skilled against mounts, which is awesome against Rohan. So, as soon as you can, just start recruiting these Beast Slayers and avoid having too many numbers of the Clan Hunters. Dunlanding Horsemen are basically just scouts, I would say. You use these guys to hit on the rear of the enemy, just destroy their archers or something like that. Certainly you're not going to count on these guys to hit the enemy's line pretty much. For that you're going to need something else. Now you do have the Wolf's Swordsman. Now this is a very good swordsman unit, and again a very low upkeep and recruitment cost unit. So these are the guys that you'll have later on. And this is the mainstay of the army. You need like 3 or 4 of these guys later on to hold on your line. They're as good pikes as any others. They're still better than their Endedweight counterparts and even their Isengard units. They're really good with them. Very low upkeep and good stats. Nothing to fear on that. Then you have the Mounted Warband. Now, don't get mistaken, this is a good cavalry unit. I mean, the image didn't seem like that, and when I saw the stats, I was like, wow, hang on a second, 613, this is basically Gondor Cav, if I'm not mistaken. They don't have as much attack as Rohan's cavalry, but they can hold on their own. They're still skilled against mounts. So as soon as you can recruit a couple of these mounted warbands, go for that. So you basically have a unit of everything, and we still haven't checked the Guardians of Dunland, which you can build on the end with Guild Wall. Now this is the heavy unit. This is really the unit that you will have like 2 or 3 per army later on in the game. Attack of 7 on such a unit is just so good. Even their highest upkeep, it's just amazing. Now do note that I'm not seeing the Izamak soldiers. And I wouldn't be able, I'll talk about these guys in a moment. And I wasn't actually able to understand where they would build. I think they are built in some other places, in some other cities, for instance. But let's talk about something else in a moment. You do have Chieftain's Bodyguards, which is effective against armor. Do note this. Melee unit, so it's a swords unit. Effective against armor just makes it so much better because these guys will be able to be sent against enemy bodyguards really well, and they'll do a lot of damage to them. So I do consider that they kind of have an interesting bodyguard for the faction that it is. Of course, I would prefer an archer bodyguard. A heavy archer bodyguard would be so much better, like Enidwaith has it. You do have the units of the fort houses, and also you have the clan spearmen, your basic spear unit, and your basic axe unit. Now, do note, I'm afraid that these clan axemen are not effective against armor, which is kind of a problem. If they would be much more effective. Still, both of these units are cheap. You can recruit them, and they will hold their own. I would always get the clan spearmen instead because they can hold more against the enemy cavalry, Rohan's cavalry, for instance. Now, in terms of economy, there is no early boost. Read me well, guys. There is no early boost. Nothing that you can build early will help you getting rid of this problem. So you really have to conquer, and it's not like you have. It's not like you start with a big army. You honestly start with spearmen. You know, you don't have like a really powerful faction leader. You have this guy. But you can recruit some interesting units in the beginning, so that's cool. You also can recruit a spy and another unit like you've seen, a diplomat, so that's kind of cool. You also have interesting Dunlanding warbands mercenaries. That actually helps out a lot because this is a very mainstay army unit. You have the defensive, some special abilities on these 3 generals that you start with, and you actually start with a unit of Guardians of Dunland. Use these guys. You're going to need to use this chieftain's unit earlier on in order to get the first buildings, the first conquests done. They also have a unit of beast slayers, which is always awesome. I would join this guy with the faction leader and stay like that for quite some time. You also have this unit. I can't remember what they are. Yeah, there we go. You have Izamak Axeman, pretty much the devil against armor units. 14 attack effective against armor. They'll chop through Olaghai as fast as anything. I mean, faster than many other units. So I think it's here that you'll be able to recruit those, right? Let me see the building browser here. Yeah, it's not here, as you can see. Guardians in Dunland. No. Gathering halls. No. Fight a spit. Mines. Production. Roads. Let me see. Ports. Smiths. Siege. Barracks. No. Let me see that. I can't remember where I've seen that, but you will be able to recruit some of these Izamak units, which is really amazing. Even if you can't, just make sure that you use this unit as effective as possible and try not to lose the guy. But I believe you can actually recruit those, maybe on an event or maybe in other places. I think they actually show that. Let me see. Yeah, it requires Dunland's homeland, so you will be able to recruit these guys pretty well. Now, Isaac X-Men changed the scene, as in, they're kind of like the upgrades to the Berserkers, so make sure you get as many as you can, because they are the units that will make sure that your infantry units will hold the line. The Isaac X-Men will chop everything so fast that you're sparing the infantry units of a prolonged melee, which they cannot win. You know, that's basically it. Later on in the game, it's really useful. Now, I was speaking about finances before I checked this. So you don't have an early boost. You will have to use the forts, but you also have to expand, which is kind of a problem. I really like this fort addition here. It just makes sure that you can send some units, capture these two places, which is honestly what you should capture earlier on because of the trade and stuff, and also because of the position. You have to cut off Bree from getting these cities, and even Endwraith. You can also go against the elves over here. I wouldn't recommend that too much, unless you really want to point out to the mines. If you want to go, you can actually capture Moria. I would advise to do that if you feel like Moria is waning. If you can send a spy and check this situation, if you feel an opportunity, go for it, because Moria has so much money that will help you out immensely. Of course, if Rohan captures Isengard, retake it and keep it for yourself, because it's really a big city that will give you a lot of income. So it's a very weak start, but I would consider a very interesting campaign to start with. It's not like it's always going to be the same thing. You know, if you consider the same thing, I would say Rohan is always the same thing. You will always have to defeat Isengard as fast as you can, which means that you probably won't be fighting Isengard's elite armies, because you'll rush them. It's not like, I mean, Dol Guldur's faction, which will always attack one or another army. You know, it's a little bit of a different campaign, and it has this interesting dichotomy in the Endwraith clans on whether they will be bad or they will be good, and how that affects you, if you'll have to fight them or not. So yeah, definitely I recommend the faction to play. I think from the minor factions, they're about the average interesting ones. You know, I would say these guys are as interesting as the orcs of the Misty Mountains, for instance. And yeah, pretty sure that you will enjoy a campaign with the Dunlands. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.